You are live.
All right, very good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Governors quarterly meeting. Let me ask board members to put your microphones on so that we can prepare for roll call. And everyone else, we appreciate it if you would keep your microphones muted. And so with that, let me ask Toya to please take the roll.
Yes, Madam Chair. Governor Robert Bogle, Representative Tim Briggs, Governor Quentin Bullock,
Present.
Governor Richard Caruso,
Present.
Senator Linda Culver or her designee Cindy Urban,
Present.
Governor Brandon Dance,
Here.
Governor William Gindelsberger,
Present.
Governor Abigail Hancox,
Present.
Senator Art Haywood or designee Jude Hussein,
Present.
Governor's designee Catherine Paisley,
Present.
Vice Chair David Mazer,
Here.
Governor Marian Moskowitz, Governor Mark Handy Fanor,
Present.
Representative Brad Roy,
Here.
Secretary of Education Carrie Rowe or designee Lynette Kuhn,
Present.
Chair Cynthia Shapira,
Here.
Governor Ali Sina Sharifi,
Present.
Vice Chair Samuel Smith,
Here.
Governor Robert Trainum, Secretary Neil Weaver,
Here.
Dr. Jamie Phillips, our faculty liaison.
Here.
And this completes the roll. We have a quorum.
Thank you very, very much, Toya. And thank you all again for joining us today. So in May, a first-generation student will walk across a PASSY stage, diploma in hand, knowing that she, and actually many others, knowing that they did something that no one else in their families has done before. And serving our students is a privilege that every member of this board is proud to uphold. And likewise, across our universities, our staff, faculty, and campus leaders share the same pride and the same commitment. And they show it through every single thing that they do every day for our students. Let me recognize them and thank them for their dedication to supporting our students and their success. February marks the midpoint of the academic year, and across our campuses right now, students are studying late, preparing for exams, finalizing internships, and probably counting down the days until May. Our students are not only earning valuable credentials that strengthen their career prospects, as importantly, they are learning how to be engaged contributors to society, preparing to become the leaders, educators, innovators, and professionals that Pennsylvania needs. Their success requires sustained, reliable investment. And thanks to the state's investment in recent years, and thanks to the hard work of our faculty, staff, and university leaders, we've been able to keep our universities affordable and accessible, and all the while delivering a high quality and meaningful educational and campus experience. We saw that materialize in a number of ways this year, including increased enrollment of Pell and of first-generation students. More students who once wondered if college was financially out of reach are now enrolled and staying enrolled. We've seen increased enrollment of transfer students, and we've seen record high retention rate. More students are not only starting with us, but they are staying, succeeding, and graduating. Because of our shared commitment to public higher education, more students are able to start and, importantly, finish their degrees at PASSY universities. These students will become our alumni and join more than 600,000 other PASSY University alumni who are driving Pennsylvania forward. And their stories are the power and promise of PASSY, and they are the proof that investing in public higher education is investing in Pennsylvania's future. This is an investment we cannot afford not to make. Public four-year higher education is not a luxury, it's an economic and a civil necessity. Thank you for allowing me to make those remarks. So at every meeting, we offer an opportunity for statewide union leaders to address the board. Let me call on Dr. Ken Mash to speak on behalf uh, of the APSCUF union. Thank you.
Uh, Thanks, Chair Shapiro. Randy, am I going before public comments?
Yeah.
Okay. So normally it is my practice to prepare remarks, to write them down so that I have a very clear message to the board. I have to admit that this time around, I'm finding that, and I did find it difficult to sit down and write a clear-headed message that to share with everyone. The last couple of weeks have been very difficult weeks, I think, for the system. As far as our expectations, the requirements of the system, and what Chair Shapiro just mentioned, funding for the state system of higher education. The last time I spoke to you about, asking for a budget request that would meet the status quo. And I pointed out that the status quo just isn't working at our universities. Since that time, we've had reason to worry about even maintaining the status quo for our system, although we will continue our efforts to make sure that we can get to that point. But I have to say, going to board meetings, and I think I've mentioned this before, it's the same thing at board meetings and council of trustee meetings, that it often feels like a dream of sorts, in that I know you're talking about our system, I know you're talking about our universities, but there is a seeming real disconnect between the system as it's talked about from this level and what actually happens at our campuses and what's actually going on our campuses. In the course of putting together our attempts to make the case to the legislature for additional monies, we polled some faculty members to ask them, what would we do if we did get more money? How would that benefit students? And even I was shocked by the responses there. That is about making the learning environment better. Um, the chancellor has spoken about the need for technology, and I want to tell you that, from the perspective of my colleagues, he's undersold it. We need money to pay for new technology. It isn't working the way that it is. The plans that the system has under its redesign will not work unless there is some serious money dedicated to upgrade the technology on our campuses so that we can deliver programs the way that we say we want to do them. I mean, we have uh, at Penn West and at Commonwealth, we have instances where we kind of have the alpha version of what that looks like. The chancellor spoke about the problems that are there. The students are not happy. The faculty are not happy. And it's not about not wanting to make it work. It's about the fact that we just don't have the resources necessary to make it work properly. What I heard from that feedback was about buildings in, um, sad shape. There's one instance at our universities where there's garbage pails collecting water from the roof as it's leaking through, and it doesn't seem to get fixed. Elevators don't work, which is, of course, problematic for our students and our faculty and the staff with disabilities. We have situations where there are wait lists for classes that are absolutely needed to be had. And all of this can be traced back to the fact that there just has not been the funds necessary to make our universities operate properly. And I think I believe it's the responsibility of this board to work in unison to make sure that at a basic level, our universities do have the resources that are necessary for us to operate properly, and to be honest about those resources that are necessary and about the funds that it would be necessary to make it happen. I encourage every member of the board, and then, just a personal feeling, I think it's kind of a responsibility of the board to go and visit our campuses, not not for, the dedicated president's tour of the university, but to actually go there to speak to students, to speak to faculty about what is actually going on at those universities. We have real issues, that are about the money. We also have real issues that are about leadership. It has become a standing item on our statewide meet and discuss agenda. That is the meeting that contractually and legally is required to occur every month about issues about accountability and competence on our campuses. And that goes to what I was saying just before about morale and people being downtrodden. And that's not just faculty, that's staff and everyone at the campuses. Because it just feels at this point like there is a great piling on. We have our concerns that originate with what's going on with the federal government. We have real concerns about work study and other programs and about their continued existence. We have concerns, about any tuition increase that will happen, because while it may just seem like a few bucks to a lot of people, it's a lot of money when if we're talking about $100 or whatever it is, to students who are worried about eating food. And we have too many of those students. We have too many students who have to couch surf to 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 live while they are trying to attend a university. We have too many students, frankly, who have to work two jobs in order to be able to afford to go to our universities. I think we are really heading towards an inflection point that's very, very serious. We have, we got a very big budget cut under a previous governor. We have struggled to get even with it, particularly if we're talking about real dollars. And it just is going to continue to be problematic. We have lost students, but, I've had this conversation with several chancellors, and there's general agreement that, you can't cut your way out of a systemic budget problem. Every cut that you make makes it harder. If you can't afford counselors, a proper number of counselors, then how are we ever going to work and be effective at improving our retention rates when our students have issues that need to be dealt with in a serious way? How do we run our athletic programs when we can't afford athletic trainers? How do we, I don't want to go on and on because I could, but I think that it's, to reiterate my point, it's very important for members of the board to go to the campuses, to speak to the people who are actually doing the work there on the ground level, both faculty and staff who are there, and to students who are not necessarily the students who are handpicked to be at those meetings. So thank you very much, Chair Shapiro, for the opportunity to speak to you. And I look forward to hearing the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Mesh. We appreciate your remarks, as always. Let me now call on Dr. Rich Furix, who is representing our trustees and serves as the president of PACT. Rich?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. And before you ask, yes, that is a fall background. I'm just tired of the snow, so I want to look at something different. And let me begin by thanking the Chancellor for meeting with our student trustees on Monday. Student trustees are an integral part of the future of our system, and more than any other trustee, have the pulse of their campus. It's important that these trustees realize the importance of their position and are given the added opportunity to interact on a system level. Thank you, Chris, for a very productive meeting. I know there was very positive feedback after the meeting, so thank you. PAC continues to focus on its mission to keep trustees informed. In addition to periodic emails, quarterly meetings with the Chancellor, and opportunities to view the Board of Governors meetings, we hold special meetings like the one with the student trustees and the recent meeting with the chancellor, the PAC board, and COT chairs to engage our trustees and to keep them informed. As we immerse ourselves in the spring semester, what are trustees thinking about? Three things come to mind. First, and probably the most important right now, is the budget, also trustee appointments and the annual PAC meeting. With the governor proposing a flat budget and the possibility of a tuition increase, how will this affect our universities as we discuss enrollment for both incoming and returning students? We appreciate Presidents Bernatsky, Driscoll, Long, and Wuba for appearing before the Senate Appropriations Committee on March the 3rd to make the case for a 5% appropriations increase that will enable us to hold our tuition flat. And to President Riley for appearing before the House Committee on March 11th. Now, links to these meetings are in my latest email to all trustees, so they have an opportunity to view them. And we are looking to the Board of Governors for guidance as we approach the 26-27 academic year. Trustee appointments continue to be at the top of the list for many of our institutions. Several universities have trustees whose terms have expired over a year ago, and they are beginning to have trouble with a quorum. We appreciate the chancellor working with the governor's office to expedite these appointments. Finally, we are focused on our annual meeting that will be held in April, both in person and virtually here in Harrisburg. During this meeting, we will have the opportunity to elect officers for the next 2 years, hear a presentation from EAB about the challenges higher education is facing on the enrollment front, and engage in a roundtable discussion with the Board of Governors and participate in a social dinner event. We hope that many of our trustees will be able to participate. Madam Chair, that ends my report.
Thank you very much, Rich. We appreciate your remarks. And now next, we will provide an opportunity for public comment. So let me ask Randy to facilitate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two individuals who'd like to offer public comment. Just as a reminder, when you start your discussion, if you could just state your name for the record. And a reminder, you'll have 3 minutes for public comment, and there's a handy timer on the screen to help you out. First up, we have Jessica Hughes. If you want to unmute and offer your comments.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Jess Hughes, and I'm an associate professor at Millersville University. My research area is disability studies, and at Millersville, I felt very lucky not only to teach in the Department of Communication and Theater, but also to support integrated studies, which is our inclusive post-secondary program for students with intellectual disabilities, and also serve alongside students on my campus and colleagues in APSCUF to deepen our culture of inclusion, which is one of our explicit EPIC values, both at Millersville University and at PASHE. I'm here today to talk about the ways in which the state system still has work to do to bring us into ADA compliance and realize inclusion across all of our campuses. The ADA sets the floor for institutional inclusion, but we have not met this baseline. One example is the lack of transition plans on our PASHE campuses. Per ADA guidelines, public entities with 50 or more employees were required to develop a transition plan soon after the Title II regulations were issued. That was in the early 1990s. I submitted a right to know request for PASHE transition plans last December, and in response, I was informed that, quote, the state system does not have within its possession, custody, or control records that are responsive to ADA transition plans, end quote. Again, transition plans lay the floor for disability rights. They consist of a list of physical barriers, methods to remove them, the schedule to get this work completed, and the names of people responsible. The ADA coordinator at Millersville has actually begun a transition plan and should complete that this year, which is the start, better decades late than never. But this lack of transition plans connects with another issue of ADA noncompliance in our state system, which is a lack of ADA coordination across campuses. Again, to quote ADA guidelines, if a public entity has 50 or more employees, it is required to designate at least one responsible employee to coordinate ADA compliance. In my right to know request last December, I requested a list of ADA coordinators in PASHE. The list I got was incomplete. Neither Indiana nor Kutztown currently have ADA coordinators per PASHE records, and consolidated universities have only one coordinator instead of one per campus. At the state level, I know that we have made some progress on ADA coordination. Our current Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer and Assistant Vice Chancellor of Social Equity and Compliance, Krista Cobb, is overseeing ADA compliance across PASHE. I've spoken with Ms. Cobb, and I've been very encouraged by her commitment to addressing disability issues. But her long title suggests a persistence of a problem at the top that we've also seen locally on my campus, which is tacking ADA compliance onto somebody's already full workload. Our ADA coordinator already had a full-time job when he took on coordination, and I think this speaks to a low priority around ADA coordination. Finally, this brings me to a last issue that's been brought to our ADA coordinator, which is a different process of accessing accommodations faced by faculty and students. Whereas students go through the interactive process required by law to access accommodations once, faculty need to do this every 6 months, which is onerous and a waste on all of our resources. So I commend this body for making progress on disability issues. Just want to state that we still need to step up our efforts. We have a ways to go. Thank you very much. I also have a handout if I can share it in chat.
Yeah,
I
just
will.
absolutely email it to board@pashe.edu and we'll make sure the
Okay.
board gets it.
Thank
you.
And I think if you want to put in the chat, that's also fine, right?
Okay.
Yeah, chat's disabled right now, but we can send a copy.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next is Dr. Jill Craven.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jill Craven, and I'm here for the third time to address our system's handling of ADA compliance and disability accommodation. Although I serve on APSCUP's Disability Committee and I have served on the Faculty Council, I speak today as an individual. PASHE has a recurring pattern of disability discrimination litigation stemming from failures to meaningfully comply with the American with Disabilities Act. Rather than address root compliance issues, leadership has repeatedly chosen a reactive, litigation-first approach that has cost taxpayer funds, damaged institutional reputation, and undermined governance transparency. PASHE's response to ADA issues has been litigation instead of correction. Where are the changes to policies? Where are the HR manual and transition plans? Where is the commitment by the board to address this key failing? I don't see it. In the past decade, multiple PASHE universities have been sued on nearly identical ADA issues and disability discrimination. These most recently include Gardner versus Kutztown, Oris versus Kutztown, and Clarion Penn West PAC arbitration and appeal. The system and university leadership and council have repeatedly chosen to litigate rather than fix. Despite severe adverse outcomes, the system continues to defend identical legal positions, including arguing that remote instruction and work is not a reasonable accommodation, despite case law to the contrary, repeating the same refusals to engage in the ADA interactive process. In the recent PAC decision, one independent mediator called the PASHE process a sham, and I'm quoting there, spending taxpayer dollars on litigation rather than investing in compliance infrastructure, accessible documentation, and trained HR personnel. Is this really where the board thinks millions of dollars should be spent? Because even if the university has no cost to itself by using state lawyers, taxpayers pay those hours, and the hours of the lawyers who represent the plaintiffs when you lose, which you do. It is not enough to say we are following the advice of counsel. Board counsel and state lawyers have now lost multiple cases on the same legal theories that they continue to assert. You cannot ignore the federal law. Board members have a fiduciary duty to protect the system's financial health and legal compliance. I respectfully ask you and urge you to do 5 things. Invest in proactive disability accommodation processes, transition plans, and trained ADA coordinators rather than reactive litigation. Direct system leadership to adopt system-wide ADA compliance standards. Hold a public review every other board meeting of what has been accomplished to remedy this pervasive issue. Have accountability. Cease defending legally unsupportable ADA positions. How many cases do you have to lose before you get the idea that you're wrong? Hold counsel accountability, have a cold. Hold counsel accountable for repeated legal losses. PASHE is spending money that it doesn't have on litigation PASHE can't win. We can fix these issues, but only by choosing compliance and accountability over costly litigation. I was told that having a vice chancellor solely on disability was too expensive. You could have had 4 years of that position simply for the cost of the Oris litigation alone. The board has the authority and the duty to stop this cycle now, and I hope you will do so. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Craven. Madam Chair, that is the end of public comment.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We very much appreciate your coming forward and making those remarks during the public commentary session. We're now going to turn to get an update from Kate Shaw, Dr. Kate Shaw, who's Executive Director of the State Board of Higher Education. I've asked her to share an update on the board's work and its strategic plan for higher education in the Commonwealth.
Okay. Great. Kate, you have the ability to share Zoom now, to share your screen if you like.
Thanks. And hi, everybody. It's nice to see you all. I will admit I miss coming to PASHI board meetings. I always found them so interesting, and it was so great to get to know people, presidents and staff alike. I'm happy to be here to talk to you about the board, and in particular, the strategic plan that the board has been working to develop over really almost the past year. So we are on the verge of presenting a final version of the plan to our own board, the State Board of Higher Education, on next Thursday, February 19th. And Cindy at that time will call for a vote to adopt this plan. And this, if the plan is adopted, and we anticipate that it will be a really big deal for the Commonwealth. We haven't had any kind of sort of cross-sector plan for higher education in Pennsylvania in over 20 years. And the last one that was adopted by the State Board of Education. And I don't know that there was much progress on trying to implement any of that master plan. But in contrast, my fearless board chair, Cindy, is bound and determined to turn quickly to implementation of the plan. And that will engage stakeholders from across the Commonwealth. So you can anticipate that we will be eagerly seeking out your collaboration as we move forward. But I apologize in advance to those of you who have heard about this plan before. Particularly, I'm thinking about the presidents, because I just spoke to you recently. But I think for board members, it's probably important for you to sort of understand where we are with this plan and how this plan was developed. So I'm going to see if I can share screen. Let's see. Whoops. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The plan is called Driving a Prosperous Pennsylvania, and I think that's an important indicator to the field, to the world in general, that we see and we are trying to position higher education as a primary engine of economic prosperity in the Commonwealth. And we are charged in the enabling legislation that was passed in 2024 to adopt a strategic plan, and in doing so, assess the needs of the Commonwealth, the higher education needs of the Commonwealth, hold regional hearings to get input, report annually on progress towards the goals of the strategic plan, and then review and revise every 5 years as necessary. And in fact, the board has the authority to revise whenever a revision is needed. The strategic planning process was, I will say, pretty intensive, and it was driven by robust stakeholder input. We worked very, very hard to make sure that all different kinds of stakeholders spoke with us and provided us with their comments and their feedback about what should be in this plan. So we had 2 major rounds of feedback. The first was last year, February through May, where we had multiple regional hearings. We had a statewide survey. We had many small group meetings, and we had people submitting feedback via email. And the feedback we were seeking at that time was to help us identify strategies aligned to the 6 sort of foundational goals in the plan. And I'll talk to you about those in a second. Once we got that feedback, we drafted a plan. We put the plan out publicly, presented it to the board, and we continued to obtain feedback on how to revise that plan, how to make it stronger. So we had a final regional hearing in Harrisburg. We also had a statewide survey. We had people submitting things via email, and we had many small group meetings. So all told, we had over 1,300 participants be part of this process. 55 small groups or individual meetings. We received many letters of support, and we received input from any sector that sort of is, higher education sector itself, but any other sector that's adjacent to higher education or cares about what happens to our sector. There are 6 goals, strategic goals that serve as pillars of the plan. The board adopted these before we started the strategic plan, or at the beginning of the strategic planning process. The first has to do with attainment. We have an affordability goal, and we have an economic development and workforce development goal, supporting the needs of Commonwealth in both those spaces, ensuring accountability and efficient, effective use of state funds, and strengthening the fiscal health and stability of the higher education sector. And those, when we went out and sought input, we asked people to focus on these goals and tell us how to make these goals a reality. So that was the nature of the feedback we were seeking. There are some defining features of this plan. It is a short plan. It is under 30 pages long. It is designed to be a roadmap based on clear goals and organizing strategies. So in other words, the minutia and the details of implementation of this plan are really not present in the document, and those will be fleshed out by the board itself once the plan is adopted. It adheres very closely to board authority and function. And so we worked really hard to ensure that we weren't trying to overreach in any way. The board is really sort of a policy and coordinating board. And so there's a lot of emphasis on ensuring that we have evidence-based sort of processes for developing policy recommendations, collecting kinds of data and information that the board is going to need as it puts forward those recommendations. So there's a lot of that in the plan. We really tried to write the plan in clear, non-technical language. I do know that for people way, way outside of higher education, sometimes there seems to be a little bit of jargon, but in general, we worked hard to write in plain English. As I said, the implementation will be driven by the board, and pretty significant engagement with the field, because that is sort of the pattern that we have set up, and we want to ensure that we continue to not operate in a vacuum, but make sure that we are consistently engaging folks from the field. And as I said earlier, it is designed to be flexible so that it can be adjusted over time. So I'm just going to walk through these goals and like the high level strategies that are included under each of these goals. So the first goal is focused on increasing post-secondary attainment. Our attainment levels in Pennsylvania are, more or less at the national average, but we see wide variation across regions. And overall, we want to increase the attainment levels and post-secondary attainment levels, because that strengthens our economy, it strengthens our attractiveness to employers with good jobs, et cetera. So these are sort of the high-level strategies that were identified to support, making progress on goal 1. And it's everything from making sure that people understand why higher education is so important. So in other words, sort of trying to counteract some of the negative narrative that we have begun to hear, not just in Pennsylvania, but nationally, making sure that pathways from high school to post-secondary education are clear, making sure that adults know how to get to higher education, and enacting policies to ensure that they can, and then identifying and increasing barriers to retention and attainment. And there is also a goal to increase responsible investment in higher education. I think several years ago, when the governor was speaking pretty consistently about the need to reform higher education, he spoke very plainly about the fact that that the field or the sector has been not invested in at a very high level for decades. And so there is a broad acknowledgement that there's a need to invest additional resources in higher education. And all of these things would help increase attainment. There's also, closely related, a goal to ensure that we've got affordable pathways to post-secondary credentials. So in addition to, directly addressing what our financial aid situation looks like, and calling for an examination of the current FIA state grant formula, we also identify in this plan, again, making sure that people understand how much it costs to go to college, and how much it costs to go to different kinds of institutions, and taking into consideration things like federal, state, and institutional grants, et cetera. And then strengthening policies that already exist to increase affordability by maybe expanding dual credit, making sure that we strengthen the connection between career technical education and higher education, et cetera. Goal 3 focuses on the need to support the economic development needs of the Commonwealth. And this is critically important in terms of the value proposition for the sector. And the strategies that are aligned underneath this goal have to do with everything from ensuring that we recruit, educate, and retain world-class talent, making sure that, when we sort of maximizing the talent of Pennsylvanians, attracting non-Pennsylvanians into the state and keeping them here so that they can contribute to the economic prosperity of the Commonwealth, supporting the unique role of research-intensive universities in leading research, innovation, and economic development, but also acknowledging very clearly and explicitly in the plan that every type of higher education institution has a critical role to play in economic development. And then, trying to identify ways to enable research and innovation to expand and thrive at a higher level in the post-secondary sector. Goal 4 is probably the weediest goal because there is the clearest connection between workforce development and higher education. And that connection is becoming more and more apparent and important as we continue to analyze data that shows the disconnect between the credentials, the number and types of credentials, post-secondary credentials that we're producing, and what the workforce of today and in the future needs. So we know that currently there's a gap of 61,000 jobs that need post-secondary credentials, and we're not producing those credentials. So we already know that we're not fully meeting the needs of the workforce. And we know that if we don't figure out a way to better meet those needs, that gap is going to grow to over 200,000 by the year 2032. And that's not good for the Commonwealth. It's not, it's missing major opportunities to ensure that our students and our residents have the credentials and talents they need to get good jobs. So this is a major element of the strategic plan. And the strategies that you see underneath these plans, this particular goal has, everything from ensuring that workforce development resources are aligned with the kinds of credentials that we would all like to see our students receiving, making sure that we take full advantage of existing regional cross-sector partnerships and strengthening them as a mechanism to understand what the workforce needs are in different regions and understand what the capacity of the region is to meet them. And then, somewhat more granular strategies to ensure that students actually have access to work experience and skill building opportunities so that when they do graduate from college, they are very well positioned to get a job. The 5th goal, given that the presidents are here, I want to note that some of the feedback that you provided me when we last spoke, specifically John Anderson provided this feedback. This original goal was to ensure accountability and efficient use of state funds. And the PASHE presidents made a very convincing argument that efficiency alone is not going to get us where we need to go if we have all of these really important goals to meet, right? So we wove in and defined the notion of effective use of state funds as well. And I think that was I appreciated that feedback because it was something that in our minds was implicit, but it wasn't obvious to our presidents, to the PASHE presidents, and so we made it very explicit. So under this goal, there's just this a strategy designed to incentivize institutions to align to these state goals. In other words, all of our higher ed institutions are doing amazing work right now, and many of them are already contributing to meeting these goals, but we are not effectively aligning resources or policies to ensure that we're all rowing in the same direction. And so that's what that strategy is focused on. There is a compelling need to ensure that we as a board and the public have access to data so that we can utilize the data to make good decisions and to inform debates and conversations, and also to be able to say to the General Assembly and to other stakeholders, we are transparent. We want to make sure that you can see what we're doing. So that you see the need for data and evidence woven throughout the plan, but it's front and center in this goal. And we imagine, or the recommendation or the strategy is to ensure that we've got interactive tables and dashboards that would allow lots of different kinds of people to take a look at these data. And PASHI is already ahead of the pack in this space. And in fact, we look to PASHI and PASHI's data dashboards and the way that you use data to inform the recommendations of this board. So we thank you for the leadership that you provide in that space. The final goal is focused on strengthening the fiscal health and stability of the higher education sector. We know that our higher education sector is under duress. We know that there have been multiple closures and mergers. We know that more are coming. And we want to, as a board, do everything we can to support the sector as it sort of manages through these fiscal difficulties or challenges. So the board has no power to do anything or collect any information from higher ed institutions in this space, but it does feel strongly that it has a responsibility to develop tools and resources to assist either, when institutions are experiencing fiscal instability or when they're exploring mergers and closures, and to make sure that if mergers and closures do occur, that they occur in a way that is going to take into consideration the impact that they might have on the communities surrounding them. So those are the 6 goals and the major strategies underneath them. I want to point out that there's some really important recurring themes throughout this plan that I think show the sort of underlying ethos of the board and its approach to the strategic plan. There's absolutely an acknowledgement that we need to create the conditions for success, that it is not a realistic thing to assume that we're going to be able to address issues of affordability, for example, within 2 years, when in fact, we really need to do a thorough assessment of the degree to which our financial aid is adequate, or any other factors that are affecting things like affordability. So there's definitely, within the sort of guts of the plan, you see a lot of emphasis on sort of setting the table for success. There's also an acknowledgement that lots of good things are already happening, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to build on existing strengths and efforts. There's also a recurring theme that we really have a role as the State Board of Higher Education to be an advocate for the sector, to ensure that people understand the value of the sector and what it does contribute and what it could contribute even more if we are smart about how we move forward. There's an emphasis on coordination and partnership, because there is no way in which the goals of this plan can be achieved by the higher education sector alone. The plan, by and large, is not written to specify individual sectors of higher education under any of the goals. What we hoped to do is to write a plan that every sector could see themselves in. Every sector could see that they could make contributions to every one of these goals. So we really tried to achieve that in the way that we drafted the plan. Aligning resources to common goals is a really important element, and really, in some ways, kind of one of the major purposes of a plan like this in a state that is as decentralized as Pennsylvania is. How do we make sure that, again, we're all rowing in the same direction? And that doesn't mean everybody has to be doing exactly the same thing, but if there are these 6 common goals that we all embrace, and that our board, made up of 21 people from every sector, if they agree to these common goals and we agree together and work together, it's important to align our efforts so that we're all trying to meet these goals. The development of recommendations, of course, we don't have authority to enforce anything at this point in the life of the board. So there's a lot of emphasis on the board developing recommendations that would be provided to the General Assembly or to whatever administration is in place. And finally, and again, the use of data to track progress, which we are required to do to inform the decisions of the board and to provide transparency and accountability. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry, but sorry I didn't pause, but I just wanted to get through that deck, and now we'd be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you, Kate. It's a very ambitious plan, but it's also, you know, a pretty down-to-earth and practical plan. I'm excited about the role that PASHI has played and will continue to play. And I'm really excited about getting it passed and implemented. So are there any questions or comments for Kate about the plan? All right, we're going to move on then. Little bit more to go in the meeting. Thank you all very much. We are now going to move into the consent agenda, which is a board action. The items listed include meeting minutes, meeting calendar, and committee assignments. And you've all received this. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No hands?
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is meeting of the University Success Committee. While only members of the University Success Committee can actually vote during this time, excuse me, we encourage all board members to ask questions if you have any. And then the items approved by the committee will come to the full board for ratification. So if you ask your questions now, it'll allow us to move expeditiously. So with that, can I please call on Dr. Quentin Bullock to moderate the University Success Committee?
Thank you, Chair Shapiro, and good afternoon to everyone. I would ask Toya to do a roll call of the University Success Committee.
Yes, Committee Chair Quentin Bullock,
Present.
Governor Neil Weaver,
Present.
Governor Rich Caruso,
Here.
Governor William Gindelsberger,
Here.
Governor Designee Catherine Paisley,
Present.
Representative Brad Roy,
Here.
Governor Ali Sina Sharifi,
Present.
Cynthia Shapira,
Here?
and President Charles Patterson, our non-voting president liaison.
Present.
Thank you. This completes the roll.
Thank you. Today we have two action items, both pertaining to the disposition of property, one at Commonwealth University and one at Millersville University. As part of the ongoing sustainability efforts, universities have been conducting space optimization activities to reduce their physical space footprint and associated costs. Both universities are seeking disposition of property in alignment with these space optimization activities. I'd like to turn it over to Sharon to walk us through the two motions.
Thank you. As outlined in the materials, Commonwealth University seeks approval to dispose of its Clearfield location. The university-owned property consists of three properties, which comprise 64 acres and includes two buildings totaling slightly over 92,400 square feet. The location currently serves slightly over 100 students, with half of those students in two-year programs. In preparation for the closure, Commonwealth stopped new student enrollment in the fall of 2025 and notified the Pennsylvania Department of Education of its intent to cease operations after the spring 2027 semester. This disposition will also eliminate losses from underutilization of space and deferred maintenance costs. And it allows the university to move forward with the disposition of the property in preparation of spring 2027. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Sharon. Based on the information that was just shared with us and as outlined in the board materials, I move that the committee recommends the Board of Governors approves Commonwealth University's request to proceed with property action as shown in the board materials. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No hands, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair.
All right. Committee members, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Regarding the second property motion presented, I move that the committee recommends the Board of Governors approves Millerville University's request to proceed with property actions as shown in the board materials. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No hands, Mr.
Discussion.
Chair.
All right. Committee members, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes the work of the University Success Committee. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you very, very much. And we are going to go now to the Chancellor's report. Chris, let me thank you for your leadership. You've made a lot of good progress, as we've talked about earlier. We're getting stronger. Lots of work still to go, but I know you're right on top of it. So thank you, and let's continue to build on the momentum. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everybody. I want to be brief this morning. I have one of my colleagues, Natalie Cartwright, will be doing a presentation to the board that I wanted to leave sufficient time for. Just a couple of comments. We have lots of challenges. We've heard some of the challenges today. I had the opportunity to visit all the campuses, as Dr. Mash suggested, for everybody a few minutes ago. And the work that we do, the mission of this system is powerful and important. And we have to make sure that while we're focusing on our challenges and our problems, that we don't lose sight of the incredible work that this system does, that these universities do, that the faculty and staff do. We're graduating 18,000 students a year, plus 13,000 students in high demand professions. 80% of them are staying in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The students are well prepared to perform the jobs that are out there that support the Commonwealth. Their futures are important. The futures of our faculty and staff are important. The futures of the regions that these institutions reside in are important. And I'm very proud to be associated with this organization. We will continue to strive to address the challenges that we have. We have lots of things to do. We have challenges on the horizon because we're looking at another decline in high school graduating population. But we will address our challenges. We will move forward and continue to strengthen these institutions and the system as a whole. With that, I would like to turn the mic over to Natalie Cartwright and ask her to make her presentation for today. Natalie?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the financial return on investment of higher education, specifically Apache education. So almost a year ago, in April of 2025, I spoke with you all about the value of a higher education credential and the importance of narrative around that value. So today, I'm going to continue that conversation, but through a more specific lens of financial return on investment. So this concept has been part of the higher education conversation for more than a decade. It really kicked off in 2010-11, and then it took clear regulatory shape in 2014 with gainful employment, which many of us remember as being aimed largely at for-profit institutions and short-term credentials. In 2024, gainful employment expanded and introduced a broader concept of financial value transparency. And two key things happened at this time. The scope widened beyond for-profits to include public institutions as well, and the focus expanded to value. So what was the net price and the borrowing needed to cover that price, and then making those outcomes publicly available. And most recently, negotiated rulemaking by the AHEAD Committee, which held sessions in December of 2025 and January of 2026, reached consensus on a new accountability and transparency framework that would apply to all post-secondary programs. And that consensus package centers on a single earnings do no harm test that aligns with existing gainful employment and value transparency reporting with agreed text is right now moving into proposed rule and public comment on that process. So, but at its core, if we just break it down, what the federal framing is asking is what did students have to pay? What debt did they take on to cover that cost? And what did they earn afterwards? And so those are the fundamental questions that we're going to discuss here today. In fall of 2025, my office conducted a PASHE-specific ROI analysis, and we approached it with two threads that we'll walk through today. The first was lifetime earnings. So what do the lifetime earnings look like for a PASHE graduate compared to someone with just a high school diploma? And then on the other side of that is the other thread is repayment feasibility. So given what the students paid versus what they earn, how many graduates are in a position to recoup that net price within 10 years? And I think what matters here is that it's grounded in PASHE data. So it's not a national proxy that we're looking at, based on median averages from the US Census Bureau. We're using actual data. Our graduate earnings come directly from the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry, which means we're using observed wages, not modeling earnings based on a study. This is just a slide to show you a quick overview of the scope of who was included in this program. I think the main takeaways here are that the window of students that we were looking at was enrolled and completed between fall 2009 and spring 2018. And the real reason for that is that we needed sufficient wage record data history in order to support those earning projections that we built. And just a note here is that the costs that we included were tuition, fees, and room and board, minus any gift aid and institutional aid for the student summed across all their terms of enrollment. So let's get into lifetime earnings analysis of the earnings premium of a PASHE degree. I do have on the next slide, this gives an overview of the methodology that was used. So we did look at a 40-year working horizon in this, and we looked at that for our PASHE graduates with 10 years of observed data, 30 years of projected data. And for our high school graduates, which is similar to what the federal language is doing, we use the median earnings based on the American Communities Survey from the US Census data. And it is simply, the earnings premium is then just simply the difference between those two things. So we can hop to the next slide. So this is the graph that really shows the outcome of what we found. The key results are that the lifetime earnings of a typical high school graduate are $1.5 million. The lifetime earnings of a typical PASHE graduate are nearly $2.5 million. And after subtracting the cost of college, which is that red line there, the net lifetime earnings for a PASHE graduate is nearly $1 million. That represents a 65% earnings premium over a lifetime. There are two additional important points here. Number one, the cost of college, that red line there, represents about 2% of lifetime earnings for a typical PASHE graduate. So put another way, for every $1 that student invested in their PASHE education generated $20 in lifetime earnings. I think that's a strong return on investment. So now moving on to our next analysis, which is repayment. Okay, so how it centers on the ability to repay that debt that they incurred. We grounded this work in a framework that was developed by the Post-Secondary Value Commission around a concept specifically known as minimum economic return. And the intention here is that a graduate meets a minimum economic return if they earn at least as much as a high school graduate, plus enough additional income to recoup their total net price of attending college within 10 years. So in plain terms, we're saying, are you earning enough more than a high school graduate so that you can reasonably repay what you paid for college over a decade? And the next slide is just a summary of kind of how those moving parts work, where we're looking at the high school graduates earning the total net cost, and then in the larger fashion there, the graduates' annual earnings. These are the results of the share of students that are meeting the minimum economic return. And I think that the headline result, there's a lot of moving parts there on the chart, but the headline result is that by year 10, 95% of our PASHE graduates are meeting minimum economic return. So in other words, 95% are earning enough more than a high school graduate to recoup that net price within 10 years. And I think the story is strong even when we step backwards. So by year 5, 86% of our graduates are already on that trajectory. And maybe even more powerful is that by year 2, more than half are on that track already. So 2 years out from their bachelor's degree, they are on track to pay off those loans within 10 years. And I think if we step back from these two analyses, I think this pattern really reflects two realities. And the first is that PASHE has kept education affordable. And the second is the credential is translating into workforce relevant earnings. So I'll close up here with some takeaways from both of those analyses, and they are PASHE graduates earn 65% more than high school graduates over their lifetime. That translates into $1 million in net lifetime earnings premium. The cost of that credential is about 2% of their lifetime earnings, and 95% of PASHE graduates earn at a level that enables them to recoup the net price of college within 10 years. Thank you for that time. I'm happy to take questions or turn it back to you, Chancellor.
Thank you, Natalie. Powerful results. Anybody have any questions for Natalie?
Rich,
I see Rich, and I've got a comment. Go ahead, Rich.
Natalie, do we have this type of data for the other universities in the state that we would compete against?
No, we do not in the PASHE data set. There are some national studies that you would be able to look at the comparison for the other universities in the state, but not this detailed and directly associated to their graduates.
But Rick, I would hope that actually the State Board of Higher Education, when it collects existing data, it's not going to collect new information, but it will collect existing data, you know, and put it in some kind of centralized data bank, and we can be able to draw, you know, these kinds of comparisons elsewhere. My only other comment is that while I think this is good and this is important for us to know, and even more important for us to, you know, kind of advertise, it also gives us some work to do, because I would like to see the cost of a degree even less than 2%. That actually sounds kind of high to me. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to see that lowered. And I would like to see that students pay off their debt in you know, that 95% pay off their debt in less than 10 years. And, you know, that we really work on student debt load as well. So this gives us stuff to work on, but a lot of, I think, good news.
Brandon, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I decreased it because I think the chairwoman's comments reflected the same thing I was going to say. The same exact reflection. I think it's great. great, really good data. Would like to see us compared to the other universities for efficiency. And then, that $40,000, is that inclusive of the interest they're paying on that debt? Because I feel like it's actually more than 2%. But anyway, it just
That's
does give
included.
us a focus thing to work on.
Mhm.
Right.
Mark Handy.
Yeah, so you mentioned that 95% of graduates earn enough to recoup their college costs within 10 years. I was wondering if you could share what that translates to in terms of estimated median annual salaries so that we can better visualize the reasonable financial outcomes for students.
Mhm. So the median earnings from the ACS for a high school graduate is in and around $38,000. So what this calculation really says, whatever that loan payment is, times 12 months in the year, plus $38,000 would be that median kind of benchmark earning for a graduate.
Jamie.
The question is about benefits. So does this just include the base salary, or are we taking into account potential benefits? Because one of the benefits of college for a lot of students outside high school is that they're going to get retirement benefits, they're going to get healthcare benefits, and those things are going to be sometimes very inaccessible to individuals with a high school education. So the benefits package itself could be well over 30, 40% of their base salary.
Very true. Yes, this is just base salary, quarterly wages.
Sam.
What's the expected payback period? Like you mortgage a house for 20 years, the bank expects you to pay it off in 20 years. What's the expected with student loans? Is there sort of a standard that it's anticipated?
It is 10 years.
It is?
Mhm.
Because it seems to me there could be sometimes where it's to the student's advantage to not pay it off any faster just because of the cost of money. If your interest on that borrowed money, if the interest rate's low enough, there's a potentially in certain markets, certain times when interest earnings are higher as opposed to the cost of borrowing money, it might be to my advantage not to pay it off any faster than I'm committed to. Just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to put apples to apples here, I guess is what I'm saying.
Sam, that's a very good point, and I think some years ago the interest rates seemed to be extremely low. Currently, they're quite a bit higher, which is surprising and alarming to me. But sure, obviously, if you have a 2.5% mortgage, you should probably take your time to pay it off right now. I mean, that's a logical point to make. But then 10 years is that typical target, so that's good. Are there any other questions from anybody? Okay, well, Natalie, thank you for that. And sorry,
there was one last question from
Sina. Oh, I missed it. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Well, I just wanted to thank Natalie and her team for this presentation and the progress they've made. Actually, it visualizes the importance of higher education in Pennsylvania and the efforts of the state system. And I just wanted to point out how reliant we are on the supporters of the state system in terms of keeping the tuition more affordable for students, because 2018 was almost 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and we do need to look back into it to be able to recruit more students and basically help Pennsylvania in the long run. Thank you.
And Chair, I just wanted to comment on your comment and Brandon's endorsement of it. Having a baseline here to start as a reference point and then be able to track how we're doing against it is a great, this is a great outcome, but striving to be better is certainly our goal. So thank you for that. And this concludes my comments.
Great. Thank you. And yes, and it's not meant as a negative. I mean, it is great, but we can do better. So let's take it for that reason too. That's great. Okay. Last order of business, I think, we're going to ask the board to consider approval of the University Success Committee's actions today. Is there a motion to approve those committee actions?
So move.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? This is to the full board now to vote.
No
Okay,
hand, Madam Chair.
all right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
No hands.
All right, very good. Board members, are there any other matters to be brought forward for discussion?
No hands.
No hands? Okay. All right, hearing none, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to talking to board members soon and seeing everyone back for our meeting in April.